How's it going? It's Drew Blazik here. I'm going to do a video on how to solve the revenue schedule, and we'll just do a step by step. So the video you're going to see is a completed something I already typed up. Just remember, on an exam, you have to type that up for the final exam for the revenue schedule. Okay, so if you want to look at the file right below this video, you'll see the Excel file. You could follow along, and you could practice as I go through it. First off, this is a completed model just with the revenue schedule deleted, and I deleted wherever I have to input things from the revenue schedule. Then we got the grade. Just to show that, here's the revenue schedule. The left grade shows how the revenue schedule does impact of a lot of things here. And then we got the weighted grade. And it shows that it does impact fixed costs, but it doesn't really impact the equations at all for the other things. And as you see, if you see in the weighted part that it shows a decline in the percentage from 100%, what does that mean? That means that you have to enter in something from the revenue schedule into the working capital schedule. And the balance sheet is balance, which tells you it does not affect the balance sheet at all. Okay. Let's get started. First, I'm going to look at right here. We got gross sales price. We got freight and warehousing. This is a per unit basis. Pricing is always per unit, right? Price per unit. So, what do we have? We have pricing per unit. Quantity. Quantity must be in units. The same thing. Quantity of a unit. And then you got revenue. What's revenue? That's going to be the price times the quantity. Excuse me. So just want to make sure you understand that from the case study. The case study gave us that the gross sales price is $694 and the freight and warehousing is $100. That was given to us. So let's solve this. It's going to be our gross sales price minus the freight and warehousing. And if it lights up green, it means you got it correct. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold down Shift, highlight it all the way over, Control R, and then that's going to solve it across. And this is the projected up here that we have. So we have the projected is right here, and then this is the actual. That's actual years that is collected. So when we go down here, that means we have to pull some of this data from the income statement. The income statement will not have quantity and it will not have price, but what it does have is revenue. So we can find the last recorded year, 2019, from the revenue or the income statement. We can find gross revenue, freight and warehousing, and net revenue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit equals, and I'm going to go down. I incorporated the income statement down here, so that's what the income statement will show, and I don't have the entire income statement, just what is necessary for us. And anytime you see the gray cells, that means that's something that you are going to have to plug in. So from the revenue schedule, we will solve revenue for the income statement. Okay, so we got that. That's correct. I'm going to hit hold down Shift, and I'm going to hit Control D for a fill down. I could do it down here as well, but I'm going to solve it. So this is going to be our total revenue, which is going to be gross revenue minus freight and warehousing. Go across. That would be the same equation throughout. I'm going to Control R to paste it to the right. And what you could do is you could grab that corner and do that as well. Be the same thing. Okay, since we were given the price in the case study, and we can find the revenue from the income statement. Now what we can do is find out what is the quantity. How many units did we sell? Well, price times quantity equals revenue. So to find out the quantity, that's going to be equal to the revenue divided by price. So I'm going to hit equals, it will be the gross revenue, and that's going to be divided by gross sales price. Now what you have to do is the revenue is in millions. That means to get this revenue we divided it by 1,000. So what I have to do is to get the actual quantity, I'm gonna have to multiply this by 1,000. Okay. Next, we want to know what is our operational capacity. What is our factory? How much can we produce? Well, that's going to be found in the assumptions page. So I'm going to go right up here. That's going to be the 420. Now, we only have, I can't drag that over unless I freeze the cell. So what I could do is I'm going to go into that cell. I'm going to hit function F4, and that's going to put dollar signs in front of it. That's one way I can do it. So what that does, if I drag it over, it's not going to move. Another thing you could do is you could select that. Once you got that, go to the next cell, hit equals, go to the previous cell, and you can do that as well, and then go like that really quick. All right, next, let's just go back up to pricing again. Let's start plugging some numbers in. Well, we got the gross sales price. Well, that's going to be in our scenarios page. We're making an assumption, not an assumption page, but we're making it through the scenario page, how much we believe the estimated forecasted price will be. So I'm going to go to scenario. And what we want to do is select that cell. If we set it up correctly, these are base, best, and worst case scenario. And if I hit that button, this will change. We want that cell in order to get that if we adjust it to best, base, or worst, it would automatically do it. So I'm going to highlight that quickly over and Control R. That's going to fill it in. Next, I want cost inflation. Go to scenario. That's right here. There's the cost. Enter. Control R. And now what we want to do in the case study, it gave us the last, and you can find this through the accounting department. Like, hey, what was the freight and warehousing cost? Well, we're going to make the assumption for the projected years that the case study says it's going to be the $100. I mean, it's going to grow at the rate of the cost of inflation. So what we're going to do here is say equals, and I'm going to hit the previous year, and I'm going to multiply it times, and that's going to be 1 plus. And what you want to do is hit the cost of inflation right above it, because it does change per year how we set it up. And then I'm going to close it, and then that should be correct, and that automatically makes our net sales price correct. I can drag that over. I'm going to show you something really quick. If I delete all those, if I just wanted to solve the first one, what I could have done is if all these are properly done, that's found in scenario, that's a calculation, and that's a calculation. I could highlight all those, and I could go over and hit Control R. That would be a quicker way rather than dragging individually. Just do it all at one time. Okay. All right, next. So we got the pricing down. I pulled up the revenue from the income statement from the last recorded year. And now we got the quantity. Let's find out. And this is really important, is the annual sales volume. We want to know how many units we sold, because that's going to affect our pricing or our cost. It's going to affect our how many output. So this is real important. We're going to plug that number in other, and that's going to help us solve, of course, the revenue. And the revenue is going to go into the income statement. Revenue is going to go into the working capital. So let's figure this one out. First off, we have our estimated in our scenarios tab through the case study, our sales volume growth. So I'm going to say equals. let's go to scenarios here. And we got that sales volume growth. I'm going to hit that cell G, was that G29? And then I'll drag that. I will drag that across in a second. Let's just do this one first. You know what? Before I solve that, I want to show you what does it mean, the implied operating rate. What that means is we only could have 420 million units. That's the maximum we can produce per, what is this, a month or whatever, or a year, in our factory as is. So this shows how much of a capacity are we actually producing. So if we produce 420, we're at 100%. If we're more than that, that may be higher than 100%. So this is going to be an important number. So I'm going to go equals. And what this is going to be is the annual sales volume. This is what we're going to want to know, divided by our maximum, the most we can actually produce. Okay. And I'm going to do this the incorrect way, and I'm going to go back and solve it the correct way so we can explain this. So I'm going to say equals. So what do we say? The annual sales volume. Well, it's going to be, we want to know by what, there's a sales volume growth. It's going to grow at 5% per year for the first year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the previous year, and I'm going to multiply that times 1 plus the growth rate. Then you want to make sure you close that up. So it shows it's correct, and it shows we are 86.1% of our factory limit. I'm going to go that across. That's going to be correct. And I'm going to highlight these. I'm going to show you something that when I highlight it across, so it shows everything's good. And if you notice, these two are gray. So something I did was incorrect. Well, if you look at it, what is the implied operating rate for that final year, 2026? Well, it's 102.7. I can't produce 102.7 because my maximum is 420. So I can't be at 102.7% of what I could do. So I produce 431.3. I only could produce 420. So I'm, what is that, 11.3 million above of what my factory. So we have to go back, and I said that was going to be incorrect. I got to go back here and do something. So I want you to think about this term, is we calculated the growth rate. However, that's the most I can produce. So I need a function to always give me the minimum of this value or this value. So for this year, the what we're producing is 361. So that would be the minimum of 420 or 361, right? And then if you look at this year, I need the minimum of this because I cannot produce above that. So I want the minimum value. So I'm going to go into this function. I'm going to go in front to that equal sign. And I'm going to type in minimum, hit tab, and what minimum does, every time you hit a comma, whatever cell you select, it'll always pick the lowest number of the calculation we just did or the 420. So this is correct here. I'm going to go on the outside of it. I'm going to hit a comma, and then I'm going to hit the 420. I'm going to close it up. And now what it's going to do, it's going to always give me the minimum of either this one or this one, and this one is the minimum right now. And if we go all the way to the end, now it correctly does, it's going to be capped out at 420. All right, now we're going to go to revenue. So remember, revenue is price times quantity, but we have to do a little extra here. So I'm going to say equals. We solved the quantity. That's what we wanted. And I'm going to multiply that times gross sales price. And remember, we are in millions. So what I want to do is, for revenue, to find quantity, we multiplied it times 1,000. For revenue, I'm going to divide by 1,000. Now, it's really easy to remember. If with revenue, I'm multiplying price times quantity. So if I multiply those two values, I'm going to divide by 1,000. For quantity, I had to divide revenue divided by price, and then I multiply times 1,000. So that's how I try to remember it. without really thinking too much on it, right? I want to go really fast when I do this. So if I'm multiplying find revenue, I divide by 1,000. And if I divide to find the quantity, I'll multiply times 1,000. This helps me remember it a little better. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to freight and warehousing. So what is that? That's going to be, that's per unit, the cost per unit. And I'm going to multiply that times the units. And then I'm going to divide by 1,000. You don't want like large numbers here and make it very hard to read. So we want to divide by 1,000 just to make it easier. So those calculations are correct. I'm going to go over, hit Control R, and then if we go to our grade, we have 100% completed on the revenue grade. Now, as you can see, I got some other things I got to plug in, because right now, if I don't plug that in, that's going to affect our income statement. But right now, technically, we got 93.6% complete. All right, so we completed the revenue schedule. So what I want to do is, what I did for this module is I included all the areas where the revenue schedule is important. So once you complete the revenue schedule, there's the cost schedule, the income statement, and the working capital schedule. Those are the only three that the revenue will plug in to complete these other schedules or financial statement. So again, costs, income, and working capital. So I really want you to get to know that. So when you're actually taking the exam, you're going to know right away, okay, I'm going to do the revenue, and I want you to really drill it in your head. It's cost, income statement, and working capital. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to go to the cost schedule. What do we want? We want to know the annual sales volume, because we're going to use that to find out the units, how much for the total fixed cost, for the total variable cost. And I guess technically you don't need it there. The reason why we include it here is that it's easier when you do the calculations. You have the sales volume right there. So once you solve it, all we're going to do is link it in. You never type 344.5. I'm going to show you why. If I typed in 344.5, that's incorrect. Because this decimal is a lot larger than 344.5. I have one decimal, but it's actually very large decimal. So you have to make sure you do that correct. So now I'm going to plug that in. And then hit shift over. Oh, messed up. So if you do that, hit Control Z, it always goes back. And then I'm going to go Control R, and that's going to drag those values over down on our cost schedule. I also included the cost inflation, which we're going to need for other aspects of that. Just to let you know, when we get to the cost schedule, there's two ways of doing it. I could connect it or link it from inflation up here, cost inflation, if you wanted to, or you could just go straight to the scenario page. Doesn't matter which way. I think a lot of financial modelers would recommend is just to link it straight above, just quicker. And then if you have to do it again down here, you just do it to the next previous one. They're all linked together. All right, for the income statement. So what do we want to know? We want to know the sales volume. And I think for the exam, they do not have the sales volume up there on the income statement. On the FMI videos, they do. So I just included it on here. Again, what's the sales volume? We just solved it. That's right there, our minimum function. We'll go across and have that go over. And what else in the income statement? Well, remember, these are the actual years. These are the actual years, last recorded years. And what we're going to do is solve the forecasted years. Where do we solve that? We solve it from the revenue schedule, and we're going to plug that into the income statement. And as you can imagine, if that is incorrect, it messes up everything. It will mess up a lot of things. As you can see, I don't have it plugged in yet. It affects shareholders' equity, debt schedule, working capital, income tax schedule. So, and if you mess up that number of the revenue schedule, you can see the impact it has on the rest of the financial statement. Okay, so what we want to know here is, what is gross revenue? I'm going to go equals. Let's go up there to the revenue schedule right there. Well, I got that one down. Control D. Just a little tip is that on the exam, they give you I kind of blocked it. I'm not showing the whole thing, but they give you the entire last recorded 3 years in the income statement. So it'll go all the way down. Well, this number is already calculated. So I recommend instead of going here and doing an equation, go to the last actual calculated year and just use that equation, go across. So hold down shift, highlight over, control R. That's just much quicker and easier, and there'll be less mistakes if you accidentally, let's say, summed it up rather than gross minus freight. And it's the same way as the cash flow statement, income statement, and balance sheet. They give you the last 3 recorded years, and all of this is already calculated. And if it's black cell, it's calculated, right? The blue cell means inputs. I just recommend take that cell, use that equation, drag it across, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so we got those two. I'm going to highlight that over, hit Control R. That means our revenue schedule, just forecasted revenue for the income statement. And then the last part is we need net revenue to plug into the working capital schedule. So to find working capital days in and totals, we need net revenue and cost of sales. So I'm going to hit equals, and I highly recommend just use the up arrow. And then just go to the revenue schedule. Oh, we don't have it there. So I'm going to plug it in. I forgot. I'm going to plug it in from the income statement. The revenue will not have the last recorded years. The income statement does. You will have this completed beforehand. So I'm just going to input that in, and then we'll drag that across. Okay, it looks completed. Everything is green. It looks good. I'm going to go to grade. Make sure it's all completed. I got green there, 100%, 100%. Any questions, please let me know. Hopefully you found this video useful. And if you have any questions, send me an email. Thanks. Bye.